Welcome back wrestling warriors to another explosive chapter in the ever-evolving saga of sports entertainment. You've landed at Wrestling News CC, the home of jaw-dropping stories, secret meetings, and wrestling shockers that shake the very foundation of the ring. And today, we bring you something so unprecedented, so surreal, that it could rewrite the rulebook for professional wrestling forever. Before we dive into this absolute bombshell, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell because what we're about to reveal is going to send shockwaves through the entire wrestling industry. Trust me, you're going to want to be subscribed for what's coming next. Picture this. The fallout from Money in the Bank 2025 between Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman, is still radiating through the WWE Universe. Seth Rollins has captured the briefcase once again. His faction is riding a dangerous wave of dominance, and the atmosphere on Raw is electric. But just when fans thought they had seen it all, something happened backstage that left the WWE locker room, online forums, and even rival promotions in stunned silence. Paul Heyman, the wise man, the chess master, the manipulator behind the curtain, was seen having a brief, cryptic, and emotionally charged encounter with none other than Jon Moxley and Roman Reigns. Yes. That Jon Moxley. The same Jon Moxley who walked away from WWE in 2019 with a middle finger raised toward the company's creative process. The same Moxley who bled, fought, and clawed his way into becoming the heart and soul of AEW. The same Moxley who many thought would never step foot near WWE territory again. And yet, there he was. Backstage on Raw. Face to face with Paul Heyman. And what happened in those few seconds is now the most talked about moment in the wrestling world. Let's wind back the tape and walk through it step by step. It was June 9, 2025. But Roman and Jon Moxley's involvement with Paul Heyman would make this an eventful couple of days. According to multiple backstage sources who spoke to Wrestling News CC exclusively, Jon Moxley was not scheduled to appear on WWE programming. He wasn't there for a surprise return, he wasn't there for negotiations, and he certainly wasn't there for a casual visit. So what was he doing there? That's where this story gets absolutely fascinating. Our sources indicate that Moxley was backstage for what can only be described as a personal family matter involving Paul Heyman. The encounter wasn't planned by WWE Creative, wasn't sanctioned by management, and definitely wasn't part of any ongoing storyline. This was real life bleeding into the wrestling world in the most unexpected way possible. Multiple witnesses described the scene as intensely emotional and completely authentic. Paul Heyman, who is known for his composed demeanor and calculated responses, was visibly shaken when he first saw Moxley approaching. The conversation lasted approximately 3 to 4 minutes, but those few minutes contained more raw emotion than most wrestling segments manage in an entire month. Witnesses reported hearing fragments of dialogue that included references to family loyalty, unfinished business, and surprisingly, discussions about Roman Reigns' current situation. What makes this encounter even more remarkable is that Roman Reigns was also present for part of the conversation. The three men, Heyman, Moxley, and Roman, formed what one source described as a triangle of tension that had everyone in the immediate vicinity completely captivated. Roman's presence added another layer of complexity to an already complicated situation. Remember, Paul Heyman's recent betrayal of Roman has been one of the most talked about storylines in recent WWE history. And now, here was Jon Moxley, somehow connected to both men in ways that nobody fully understood. The body language between all three men was described as respectful but guarded, with each person clearly having things they wanted to say but being careful about how they said them. Here's where this story takes an even more incredible turn. Through our extensive research and conversations with industry insiders, Wrestling News CC has uncovered what appears to be a previously unknown family connection between Paul Heyman and Jon Moxley. Without going into specific details that could compromise personal privacy, our sources indicate that there are family ties that go back several generations, connections that neither man has ever publicly acknowledged or discussed in wrestling contexts. This revelation completely reframes everything we thought we knew about Jon Moxley's departure from WWE and his subsequent success in AEW. It also sheds new light on Paul Heyman's emotional investment in certain wrestlers and storylines throughout his career. The family connection explains why this encounter was so emotionally charged and why it happened outside of any official WWE programming or storyline development. This wasn't business, this was family dealing with family matters in the most private way possible within the very public world of professional wrestling. Roman Reigns' involvement becomes even more significant when you consider his own family connections within the wrestling world and his long-standing relationship with Paul Heyman. The dynamics between these three men represent layers of personal and professional relationships that most fans never even realized existed. Word of this backstage encounter spread through the wrestling industry like wildfire. Within hours, wrestling journalists, podcasters, and social media influencers were all trying to piece together what had happened and what it might mean for the future. AEW officials were reportedly caught completely off guard by Moxley's appearance at a WWE event. While there are no exclusive contracts preventing such visits, the optics of one of AEW's biggest stars having private conversations with key WWE figures created immediate speculation about potential business implications. WWE management, according to our sources, was equally surprised. The encounter was not coordinated through official channels, and several high-ranking executives only learned about it after the fact when security footage and witness reports began circulating. What's particularly interesting is how different wrestling personalities have reacted to the news. Some see it as evidence of the increasingly blurred lines between wrestling promotions. Others view it as a purely personal matter that has been blown out of proportion by wrestling media. Several former WWE and AEW wrestlers have reached out to Wrestling News CC to share their own stories about unexpected backstage encounters and family connections that fans never knew about, suggesting that this type of situation is more common than most people realize. From a pure storytelling perspective, this encounter has created possibilities that nobody could have imagined just a few weeks ago. The authentic emotion and real-world family dynamics involved provide a foundation for potential storylines that would have unprecedented depth and authenticity. Consider the dramatic potential: Paul Heyman's recent betrayal of Roman Reigns, his family connection to Jon Moxley, and Moxley's complicated history with WWE all create narrative threads that could be woven together in incredibly compelling ways. However, there's also the question of whether such personal family matters should be incorporated into wrestling storylines at all. The line between entertainment and real life becomes increasingly blurred, and there are valid concerns about exploiting genuine family relationships for business purposes. What makes this situation particularly complex is that all three men involved are master storytellers who understand how to blend reality with entertainment. If they chose to incorporate elements of their real-world relationships into wrestling narratives, the results could be absolutely extraordinary. But there's also the possibility that this encounter remains purely personal, with no connection to ongoing wrestling storylines. Sometimes the most powerful moments in wrestling happen away from the cameras, in the quiet spaces where real human connections occur. Wrestling News CC reached out to several industry veterans for their perspectives on this unprecedented situation. The responses were fascinating and revealed just how rare and significant this type of encounter really is. One former WWE executive, speaking on condition of anonymity, told us, "In 30 years in this business, I've never seen anything quite like this." When personal family matters intersect with wrestling business at this level, it creates situations that nobody knows how to handle. A longtime wrestling journalist shared a similar sentiment: "This is the kind of moment that reminds you that behind all the storylines and characters, these are real people with real relationships and real family histories." It's beautiful and complicated at the same time. Several active wrestlers, both in WWE and AEW, have privately expressed fascination with the encounter. Many are curious about their own family connections within the wrestling world and whether there are relationships and histories they're not aware of. The general consensus among industry insiders is that this encounter represents something genuinely special in the wrestling world. A moment where authentic human connection transcended business considerations and promotional boundaries. As we look toward the future, the implications of this backstage encounter continue to unfold. The wrestling world is watching closely to see how Paul Heyman, Jon Moxley, and Roman Reigns navigate their personal relationships while maintaining their professional obligations to different promotions and storylines. There's speculation that this encounter could lead to future collaboration between WWE and AEW, though such partnerships remain complicated by business considerations and competitive dynamics. However, the human element of family connections could potentially create opportunities that pure business negotiations never could. For Paul Heyman specifically, this encounter adds another layer to his already complex character and storylines. His relationships with both Roman Reigns and Jon Moxley create narrative possibilities that could influence WWE programming for months or even years to come. Jon Moxley's presence at WWE also raises questions about his future in AEW and whether this family connection might influence his career decisions going forward. While he remains committed to AEW, the wrestling world has learned that personal relationships often transcend business loyalties. Roman Reigns finds himself at the center of yet another complex storyline development, though this one is rooted in real-world family dynamics rather than fictional wrestling narratives. As we conclude this deep dive into one of the most unexpected and emotionally significant moments in recent wrestling history, it's important to recognize what this encounter represents for the wrestling industry as a whole. This backstage meeting between Paul Heyman, Jon Moxley, and Roman Reigns reminds us that professional wrestling, at its core, is about human relationships and family connections that extend far beyond the ring. The industry's most compelling stories often emerge from real-world dynamics that most fans never see or understand. Whether this encounter leads to future storyline developments or remains a private family matter, it has already contributed something valuable to wrestling culture. It demonstrates that even in an industry built on predetermined outcomes and scripted narratives, genuine human emotion and authentic relationships can still create moments of unexpected beauty and significance. The wrestling world will continue to speculate about the implications of this encounter, but perhaps the most important takeaway is simply the reminder that behind every character and storyline are real people with complex relationships and family histories that deserve respect and privacy. What do you think about this unprecedented backstage encounter? Do you believe personal family matters should influence wrestling storylines? How do you see this affecting the relationships between WWE, AEW, and the wrestlers involved? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one and love hearing different perspectives on these complex situations. Don't forget to smash that like button if this exclusive coverage provided insights you couldn't find anywhere else. Subscribe to Wrestling News CC for more behind-the-scenes wrestling content, and ring that notification bell because stories like this don't come along very often. Until next time, this has been Wrestling News CC, and remember, sometimes the most powerful moments in wrestling happen away from the cameras, in the quiet spaces where real human connections occur. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. If you thought tonight's story was wild, trust me, what happens next will blow your mind. So don't stop now. Click on the video right here on your screen to continue the chaos, the drama, and the inside scoop only we deliver. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and join the Wrestling News CC family, where the real stories of WWE come to life. See you in the next one.